Welcome everyone to December's Women's Month of Reflection Talk, which is Our Lady of Guadalupe, Heart of Mary. If you could please mute yourself, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. We're so happy to have you join us. We hope and pray that you and your family are well and safe this holiday season. We understand your time is precious and we do appreciate you joining us for the evening. From October through May, we hold a monthly talk relevant to our faith, society, and culture. And please go to the olscretreat.org website for more information on these talks and on retreats coming up. Hi, my name is Kathleen Whitmer. I am fortunate and humbled to be part of a core group of women who host these events every month. They are Gail De Silva, Camille Stevens, Patty LaBerge, Jennifer Dodoni, and Elaine Terracini. Without them, this would not be happening. A special thank you to Father Thomas, who is willing to accompany us every month to our adventures to host these events, and a special thank you to Natasha Sorby, who's making sure our virtual experience is as seamless as possible. A couple housekeeping notes. As you can see, we're Zooming this time, and we're also streaming on Facebook Live. We're going to try to get a little bit more intimately involved in these talks. Please bear with us as we're trying these different venues as we navigate COVID and in-person and guidelines and virtual experiences. But rest assured, the virtual aspect will not be going away. The Q&A portion, which will happen after the talk, you can go up to the right side of your screen to the chat and post your question there, and I will monitor them and proctor them to Fernando. For the best viewing experience, go to your top and hit speaker view. These talks are recorded and will be posted on the Our Lady of Santa Clara's Facebook page and YouTube channel. We have two upcoming talks. January 26th, we're going to be having a talk on this, The Temperament God Gave You, which is based on the book by Art and Lorraine Bennett. And then February 23rd, we'll be having a talk on The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. He also has the 5 love languages for children and teenagers, in case you have any of those in the household. Very, very insightful books. And you learn quite a bit about yourself and what you're kind of made out of and what your love languages are and the temperament God has given you. Okay. What else? If those two talks are of interest to you, please go to a website starting tomorrow and you can register for them. Okay. So for those who are just joining me, I see a few people who are. Again, my name is Kathleen Whitmer, and I'll be hosting these events. And now let's talk about this evening. I find it very apropos to have a talk on Our Lady of Guadalupe on the heels of the feast days of the Immaculate Conception and of Our Lady of Guadalupe the other day. Our speaker, Luis Fernando Castaneda, is a native of Mexico City. He has studied at the St. Joseph Seminary in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. He's completed his studies at the Immaculate Conception Seminary in Mexico City. He studied history, archaeology, anthropology at the Institute of Archaeology at Mexico City. He studied Our Lady of Guadalupe at the Center for Guadalupan Studies in Mexico City. And currently he's studying at the Institute of Higher Studies of Our Lady of Guadalupe at the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe. He's given lectures to Our Lady of Guadalupe since 1998. He has given lectures in Mexico, Germany, the United States, Austria, and Canada, of course, his native area. Okay. Currently, he's working as a tour guide for pilgrimages to Tepeyac and other religious sites in Mexico. Fernando, I'm not quite sure you'd be doing that right now, but you do that. So with no further ado, I'd like to hand it over to our guest speaker for the evening, Fernando Luis Castaneda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathleen. You can hear me there? You can. Good. All right. So thank you very much for that introduction. Very kind. I am very happy to be here. This is my second time addressing this particular group, and I am absolutely thrilled to be, and surprised to be asked back. No, I'm not surprised. I'm just joking. It's very kind of you. And as Kathleen said, we're going to have a Q&A at the end. It's easier if you put your questions inside the chat, because that way we don't duplicate people asking questions, and it doesn't extend as much. I'm going to be doing a presentation. The presentation is very short. It's very quick. I call it Introduction to Our Lady of Guadalupe, even though it's only 1 hour today, the presentation. However, the full presentation that I have is actually 9 hours long. We do retreats for 3-day retreats, and that way we're able to do the whole 9 hours, and it's an in-depth experience. Today, it's just going to be a light, quick, okay, 1 hour. Start the stopwatch. And for Lady of Guadalupe, it is going to be just running through from the pre-Columbian native beliefs, what Juan Diego was taught as he was growing up, then what the Europeans had as a vision of the world before the discovery of America, and then, as Father mentioned at Mass, the mess that came about after, and then, of course, the apparitions of Our Lady. And I'm going to touch on just a few of the elements that the natives were able to understand of Our Lady directly from the image. I'm going to give you the view of Juan Diego. I'm going to put you in the mindset of the natives to understand and read the image the way, let's call it an emoji, we do today. We communicate with images today. We have little images that are either a happy face, a coffee, a sad, a dancing, all of these elements. This is one of the oldest ways of communication, through images and pictures. And then we're going to see about the studies, the scientific studies and analysis done through some of the years, and then we'll end up with the papal messages and the papal 3 popes only, with the interaction with Our Lady of Guadalupe, and of course the importance and transcendence of Our Lady of Guadalupe today, what she means to us today as we are here in the middle of a pandemic in the new millennium. Okay, so shall we begin? I'm going to be sharing the screen, and here we go. Can you see that? There. Okay, do you see that? The first introduction. Very well. So, introduction to Our Lady of Guadalupe. There we are. Now, I'm going to begin with, I'm going to call it the Aztecs. It isn't only the Aztecs, it's all of Mesoamerica. Wherever you have a pyramid, this applies. We're going to focus on the Aztecs because, of course, she appears in the lake area where Mexico City is located, and that is why we focus. But it does apply mythology and cosmology, what the belief system is and what their concept of the world is, the 2 focal points. So the natives never developed an alphabet. Native Americans never developed an alphabet. So they communicated through images and pictures. That is where the whole, my little comment about the emoji bit comes in, where they read images. So images are never what they seem. We have here a pyramid, and this is the back of the pyramid. This is a drawing of the actual back of the pyramid. This little pyramid is in the Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City. And what I know, it doesn't look much like a pyramid, but it's actually the back part of the pyramid that we're looking at. That is why you only see a rectangle. At the bottom, we have a man lying down on the left-hand side. You can see his head, then his hands, then his feet. We can even see his toenails there on the right-hand side at the bottom corner. We can see how he's lying face up, and this is the god Copil. this god decided that he was going to teach mankind the way to worship the gods was the right way to worship the gods and what had to be taught. So he takes a knife, opens up his own chest, takes out his own heart, and throws it in the middle of the lake, falls down dead, and from the open wound, which is what you can see here with teeth and an eye, like a face, it is an open wound. Then we see a cactus, a prickly cactus grows from his chest. The fruits, which are not prickly pears, but in this case, we see they're human hearts. Okay, there are 10 human hearts, the number is insignificant. Then we have an eagle on top of that, which has 2 of the hearts, each one on each one of its claws. And then we see how the wings are spread open. It is the wind, it's flapping the wings, it is the wind. So nothing is what it seems. So the eagle also stands for other things. Around the eye, we see the rays of the sun. These little spikes around the eye represent fire. The sun rays, fire. This glyph here on the right, just below the beak, this is blood. Blood and the earth are exactly the same. They are interchangeable. We'll see later on why that is. And then we have here the glyph. This element here is water. So we have water, earth, fire, and wind. Earth, wind, fire, and water, the 4 elements that are the building blocks of life. Life feeds on human hearts in that rock in the middle of the lake. So this is their meaning of what their life has to be about. What is the whole purpose of their life? Who are they? They are the people of the sun, and they are the ones who have continued life. The native Nahuatl, the Nahuatl is the language of the Aztecs, as many other different groups, ethnic groups around. And the Nahuatl word for rock is tetl. The Nahuatl word for the prickly pear cactus is nochtli, and tlan means place. Tetl, Nochtitlan. Tenochtitlan is actually the official name of Mexico City. Mexico, Tenochtitlan. So this is the reason for their existence, is to continue continue life by providing human sacrifices. Their concept of the world, or cosmology, is that the world is flat and it ends on the oceans. There is the surface of the world is divided by the path of the sun, which is east-west, and the path of the wind, north-south. From the east, we have the rising of the sun, which is fire that comes out of the earth. And then in the evening, the sun goes down into the earth and then it becomes part of the earth. So it is darkness, and that's earth. On the north side, we have the winds that blow from north to south, the primary winds here. The dominant winds are north to south. So the north is wind, and the south, the clouds are pushed up against the mountains and we get the rains. So that is water. So we have earth, wind, fire, and water, once again divided into the cross that makes this symbol and the surface of the earth. There are 13 heavens and 9 underworlds. There are 13 heavens multiplied times 4, which is each one of these 4 elements, or 4 petals of this sort of cross that we see here. And then as 52. 52 is a cycle of a year, which is what we would call a century. And then on the at the bottom, the 9 underworlds represent pregnancy, gestation. So it's a place of darkness that leads to light. The reason is that when you died, it didn't matter for them how you lived, but how you died. When you had made something wrong, when you had offended the gods, when you had to be punished, since there's no punishment in the afterlife, then you are punished by the gods through sickness, pain, the death of your livestock, the failing of the crops. Anything wrong, anything bad that happens is direct punishments from the gods of what you have done. You may not know what you've done, but they do, and they take their revenge on you. There is no mercy. It is a concept of you fail, and then you are punished in life. So depending on the way you die, if you die by drowning, for example, then you go to the second underworld, which is the earthly paradise, and you get to play with water for 52 years until your soul is released. Then, but if you die of nothing, if you have no outward signs as to what you died of, you died in your sleep in the middle of the night, quietly and peacefully, which is the death that we all look forward to these days. For them, it was the most horrific possible death you could have, because that meant that no God wanted you. The way you died was the God that took your soul. But if you died of nothing, then you are rejected by all of the gods. So your soul goes to the lowest underworld here in the Mictlán, and then you spend 1 year in doing tests and trials and purifying your soul. And then at the end of that year, the souls of the dead go back to the surface for 1 night in order to feed. They need sustenance and rest for 1 night. And then the families would put out food for the souls to feed with and to feed on. And then at the end of that night, when the sun comes up in the morning, the souls go back to the underworld. And if you pass the test, like a video game, if you pass, you go to the next level. If you don't, you repeat the level, and God knows how long you're going to be there, repeating the levels until you're finally passing. So if this sounds familiar, it's because this is the source and the origin of the Day of the Dead, where the souls of the dead come back and they feed for 1 night. We feed them for a night, and then on the next day we feast. Then the souls, all these are pushing up continuously to reach the heavens. The souls at the end of this 9 levels come back. The men come back as hummingbirds, the women come back as flowers or butterflies. So the energy that is pushing, all these souls that are pushing up, create mountains or hills. So the hills and mountains are the most sacred place, because that is where physically we see how the underworld reaches and touches the heavens. So the top of a mountain or the top of a hill is the most sacred place, because this is literally where heaven and earth and the underworlds meet. So a pyramid is creating an artificial hill. It is artificially creating, though no less valid, the connection between the heavens and the underworld. So the only purpose of a pyramid is to elevate a temple that would house the idol. They practice idolatry. They believed that by carving a statue and then having it perfect, then the soul of the god would inhabit this statue. So they had the god physically there. If the statue was damaged or imperfect, the soul was released, the spirit of the god was released, and this statue was deemed useless, and then it would be buried, and they would simply carve a new one. So they had the concept of having their gods with them directly, but they needed to continue to feed the gods. They needed to continue or do the human sacrifices, sending souls to each one of these levels has a different god, a different pair of gods, because they were always male and female, they're dual. And then if you don't continue to do the human sacrifices, this whole structure would collapse and the end of the world would come upon them. So their entire city is built with pyramids. They had a family pyramid, they had a neighborhood pyramid, and then they would have the massive ceremonial center, which is the most important pyramid, the main pyramid in the center of the city. Then that's what Juan Diego was raised on. That is what they believed. And their connection with the gods were so absolute and so intimate, and they were so convinced that they would even hand over their own children, their own parents, their siblings, and themselves to be sacrificed in order for life to continue, because that was the will of the gods. Now, in Europe, what happens to Europe? Normally, when we are taught about the history of the discovery of America and the arrival of the Europeans, we don't look into what was happening in Europe at the time. We sort of focus only on America and the Native Americans and what happened here. And then, so in Europe at the time, once Christianity has established and the Christendom has established, we understand that man is made in the image and likeness of God, and God has placed man on earth. So with Jerusalem on the center, because this is where Jesus resurrects, then Jerusalem is the holy city. It is the most sacred city. It is the most sacred place on earth. It is the Holy Land. So this is the center of the earth. So if man is is created by a Trinitarian God and placed on earth, then the earth is Trinitarian. We have Europe, Asia, and Africa with Jerusalem in the center. We're all very happy. We're all children of God. But then they discover America, and they realize after not a very long time that this is not an island. This is another continent. So we have an issue now. The sailors, who were terribly superstitious and very ignorant, they had the belief that you could literally sail off the edge of the world, and they interpreted this as there is a massive serpent dragon under the earth that is ready to devour the ships that would sail off the earth. They would even paint on maps this demonic creatures as snakes. We see here on the top right hand corner a red serpent, all of these fantastic beasts that are willing to destroy and ready to destroy, but it is the red serpent that is going to become important for us, because of course we understand the serpent as the devil. When Hernán Cortés arrives in Mexico City, in Tenochtitlan, they believe that he is Quetzalcoatl, the white god that would come from the east to put all of the other gods in their place. However, so when he arrives, they think that he is a god. As Father mentioned in Mass, there is the comet, Halley's comet is visible. There's earthquakes. There are several things that happen that actually favored Hernán Cortés without his ever doing anything, even without his knowledge. They think that he is a god, so they offer him 5 human sacrifices, as you can see here in the pyramid. They offer 5 human sacrifices for Hernán Cortés, and then they offer him the flesh of the sacrifice to eat. He refuses it, which only helps to create the idea that he is Quetzalcoatl that has returned in order to take his rightful throne. It doesn't take them very long to realize that they're not gods, and they kick them out. It takes 2 years for Hernán Cortés to rally all of the natives that were against the Aztecs, which weren't a few. There was a lot of natives were upset with the Aztecs. They were quite the tyrants. And so he comes back 2 years later in 1521 and does the siege of the island in the middle of the lake of Texcoco. And he builds boats, which of course the natives did not have. They had canoes. And he builds ships, and they arm them. And he finally does the battle against the Aztecs. What helped them mostly, the Europeans, is the fact that they had the pox. They, without knowing, they left the pox 2 years before with the natives and started weakening them. So 70% of the natives that died at this time, at the time of the conquest, died because of the pox, from sickness. They were conquered, they were defeated, and the Franciscan friars, as Father mentioned, it was only Franciscans at this time, and the Franciscan friars started destroying. When they asked the natives, at first when they communicated with the natives and they asked them, who created you? Who gave you life? Their answer was Quetzalcoatl. As a translation, Quetzalcoatl is the feathered serpent. Now, as Christians, whenever we hear the serpent, we understand that from Genesis to Revelations, the serpent is depicted as the devil. So when they answer that they were created by the feathered serpent, the feathers, of course, are ignored, and it is the serpent what they focus on. So they truly believe that these are creatures of Satan, that they are created by Satan. And if they are created by Satan, they have no soul. Only God infuses the soul. So these are evil creatures that must be destroyed. The Franciscan friars, thank God for the Franciscans, they have the theology and the philosophy of brother, sun, sister, moon. So all of creation is good because it is created by God, and only God can create. At the act of creation, even if it's just a doodle, it is something that we do outside of ourselves. So this is a symbol of generosity. We are participating in the image and likeness of God when we are able to create something outside of ourselves. So the devil cannot create, because it is the absolute pride and absolute selfishness. So a selfless act is impossible for the devil. So these are not animals. These are not demonic creatures. These are human beings that have been tricked by Satan and all of his demons, and they're evil and they must be destroyed. Not the natives, the temples, all of the idols, all of the pyramids. So by destroying the pyramids and destroying the statues and demons, they are exercising the demons that have inhabited and fooled the natives and tricked them into killing and doing human sacrifices and doing all of the elements. So anything that comes from the natives is our demonic and are demons, so that nothing that comes from the natives can possibly be good, because of course they are product of demonic influence, so they must be destroyed. And they proceed to do so. They tear down the temples, they tear down the pyramids, and start building churches away from the pyramids, not on top of them, not at first. And then using the stones of the pyramids, they are, by building churches and monasteries and convents, they are literally blessing and consecrating, giving back to God the land that he created, that the devil has tricked the natives into turning into pyramids and all of these different rituals that they could possibly nothing good with them. So the Europeans, the militia, we're talking about the military, which are incredibly ignorant, and this is part of the superstition people that have the idea, the first idea that was presented to them was that these were not human. They were created by the devil and they don't have a soul. They are below the rats, because even rats are created by God. So when the Franciscan missionaries began to evangelize and convert a handful of natives, they are giving communion to the natives, to the horror of the militia, because of course it is worse than giving communion to a rat, because these are things that are created by Satan, are below the rats. So how dare you? So they start attacking the Franciscan friars by the Europeans themselves, because they're giving communion to the natives and because they're baptizing and accepting as Christians these things. So as Father said, even the bishop receives 2 attempts against his life because he authorized the conversion and the evangelization of the natives. Now, the natives weren't going to take the destruction of the pyramids and the destruction of their idols lying down, not only because of the artwork or the buildings, but because they were convinced that they were going to bring about the end of the world. So they had to stop the Europeans from the destruction of the pyramids in order to continue the rightful rituals, the proper sacrifices, all of the elements that they thought, because they had in their mindset the idea that this is commanded by God and this is what they have to do. So they have to stop the Europeans, and then the only way to stop them is to kill them for the greater glory of God. The Europeans start defending against the natives because, of course, they have to stop the construction of the pyramids and they have to stop the human sacrifices for the greater glory of God. They also have to stop the Franciscan friars from continuing to do this heresy for the greater glory of God. Then the natives, who saw that there were other natives that were converting and they were abandoning the ancient rituals, they had to be stopped, because then, like a disease, they're going to spread and they are going to convert other people to abandon their gods and to bring about the end of the world. So they have to be stopped. They have to be killed for the greater glory of God. So if this hasn't been clear to you, let me clear it up. There were Europeans killing Europeans, natives killing Europeans, natives killing natives, and Europeans killing natives. Okay, in the middle of all this mess, and everyone was acting for the greater glory of God. So in the middle of this mess, the bishop writes a letter to the king. If God does not intervene, the land will be lost. It is about to be lost. He has already issued orders to his friars that they're packing it in. They're leaving for Europe because there's literally nothing that he can do. He can see no way out. The feast day of the Immaculate Conception comes around and he prays to our Blessed Mother. He asks for help and then goes to bed. On December the 9th, Saturday, that where Juan Diego was headed. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot one tiny little detail. This is the Church of St. James of Tlatelolco. This is where the Franciscan friars started teaching the natives about Christianity. This is where they had the catechism every Saturday. And this is also where they started learning from the natives about their entire life, their beliefs, their gods, and absolutely everything that they could get about that. So this is where Juan Diego was heading to attend catechesis and mass. Mass was at 5 o'clock in the morning. So we're talking about Juan Diego leaving in the middle of the night. Now, sunrise is after 6. So 5 o'clock mass, and then it ended at the time that the sun was rising. So Juan Diego leaves his house in the middle of the night, walking about, as we can see here, from Ecatepec is where he lived, walking down to going to Tepeyac Hill, where he had to take a causeway that went on the lake. This is the only avenue that goes on the lake in order to reach Tlatelolco. That is where the convent was located, eventually going to Mexico Tenochtitlan, which is where the cathedral and the bishop were located. So Juan Diego leaves his house in the middle of the night, and it takes him 4 hours to do the entire trek. So when he reaches Tepeyac Hill, suddenly there's a bright light that shines at the top of the hill, and the birds start singing, and he thinks, okay, that's it, I'm dead. This is paradise. This is beautiful. The only way to reach paradise is dead, so I am dead. Suddenly, there's silence, and then the hill begins to answer the song of the birds. And then he thinks, okay, I'm really dead. Because, the birds singing, we're fine. The hill singing, yeah, no. So then there's silence, and then he hears the voice of a woman calling him at the top of the hill. He climbs the hill and finds a 15, 16-year-old woman who tells him, I am the ever Virgin Mary, mother of the only one true God for whom one lives. I wish to have a house, a sacred house, a church, built on this place, where I will show him, I will make him manifest. There I will remain, and I will give him to you. I wish to bring all my love, mercy, and compassion to all of my children united in this land. This is the short version of the message. I really recommend you read the Nicanor Poa, the entire story. It is a bit poetic. The language is poetic, so it's a little hard to translate and sometimes to understand, but I swear it is a beautiful read, and it will elevate your spirit. So she tells Juan Diego, go tell the bishop everything that you have seen and you have heard. All right, off goes Juan Diego to see the bishop. When he gets to see the bishop, he tells him that, there's the birds singing, and then the hill answers, and then there's a lady that wants a church built on the hill. The bishop listens to him very attentively, very carefully, and very kindly, and then tells him, oh, everything you're telling me is so beautiful. Why don't you go home, and some other time you'll come back and tell me more of these wonderful things you're seeing. Juan Diego realizes that he's not believed and he's just being sent away. He goes back to our Blessed Mother on Tepeyac Hill and tells her, well, the bishop doesn't believe a word I'm saying. Why don't you send someone else? Send someone with authority. I'm nothing. I'm no one. I'm the bottom of the ladder, the end of the rope. I am just no one. I'm a Masegual, an ordinary man. Why don't you send a priest, send a Spaniard, send someone that does have authority and will be listened to and believed? Our Lady tells him, no, it has to be you. You will be my ambassador. Now, with just that one word, my ambassador, she is calling Juan Diego the littlest of my sons, my beloved, the closest to my heart. And then she names him the ambassador. Now, an ambassador has no voice of their own. They are the messengers of whoever sends them, whether it is a prime minister, a president, or a king, or whoever. The ambassador has no personal voice. The voice that he speaks is the voice of the person who sends him. When Our Lady names him the ambassador, Juan Diego becomes the voice of God. So just one word, ambassador. She has elevated the Juan Diego and all Native Americans to the same stature as the Europeans. No one greater, no one lesser than the other, equal, created and loved equally by God. So Juan Diego says, okay. So she tells him, go home, get some rest. Tomorrow you go back to the bishop and you tell him everything you've seen and heard, and that it is my will to have the church built here. Okay, off goes Juan Diego to home. Next day, he goes to see the bishop. Again, he insists the Lady of Heaven, Mary, the Mother of God, wishes to have a church built on that site. Okay, so the bishop starts listening to him a little more attentively, because everything word that Juan Diego is saying and everything he expresses is absolutely correct, theologically correct. Now, Bible studies are ordinary today, but back then it was exclusively the priest who studied theology. So there's this native who doesn't speak English, Spanish, and the bishop didn't understand Nahuatl, so they have an interpreter who we have here standing, the man with the white beard standing behind, Juan Gonzalez. And the bishop asks the people around him, does anybody know this man? And they tell him, yes, we know him very well. He is one of the recent converts, which was a handful. He attends catechesis. He's a grandfather, a widower. He is a very decent and respected man in his community. Sure. Okay. What about this Tepeyac Hill? Well, Tepeyac. There used to be a pyramid dedicated to Tonantzin-Atlique, the mother of all the gods and the mother of all mankind. And they had human sacrifices of women who had given birth many times precisely on that pyramid. And the bishop says, okay, I get it now. So somebody wants me to build a Christian temple to a pagan goddess. Not going to happen. And I want to find out who's behind this. So he tells Juan Diego, bring me proof, solid proof that what you're saying is true, and I will build the church. And then tells his guards, follow him. And whoever he stops and talks to, that is the person who's behind this. The bishop wants to find out, why on earth would someone want to have a church built in the middle of nowhere on a dry, barren hill at the end of the lake? So the guards follow Juan Diego. Juan Diego stops and talks to no one. He goes directly to Tepeyac, but the moment he steps off the causeway and sets foot on Tepeyac, he vanishes from sight. So the guards at first think, okay, he's hiding. He's got to be hiding. When they reach the spot where he disappears, they realize there's no place to hide. So they go back to the bishop, terrified, and tell the bishop he's a liar, he's a sorcerer, he's evil. There's something going on here that is very weird and demonic. Do not listen to him. Do not believe anything he says. He's a liar. Okay. So the bishop says, okay, thank you. And then in the meantime, Juan Diego, unaware of what's going on, he goes up the hill, he talks to Our Lady and says, okay, the bishop wants proof, solid proof that what I'm saying is true, and to build the church. Fine, go home, get some rest. Tomorrow you come back and I'll give you the proof that the bishop requests. Okay, Juan Diego goes home to Tulpetlac, the house where he was living, and arriving, he finds his uncle sick in bed, dying. Now, the problem with the pox is that any native who caught it was dead. It was a assured death. So he goes and searches the medicine and the local medicine and the shaman. The shaman gives him some herbal remedies and medicines, but of course nothing works. And he spends an entire day trying to appease the gods, trying to drive away the evil spirits that might be the cause of the disease, or appeasing the god that might be sending that problem, that disease. But when he realizes, that the temperature is rising and rising, he tells Juan Diego, okay, the god of the sun has the soul of your uncle in its claws. And the reason why the fever is going so high, he didn't use the word fever naturally, the fire burning within him from the god of the sun, it is the sun that is pulling out the soul. So be happy and rejoice, because he's going to join the sun. Juan Diego tells his uncle, okay, get ready, you're going to die. Okay, I'm not going to die like a pagan. Get me a priest. I need confession, last rites. Okay, so off goes Juan Diego. He's got 4 hours to go, 4 hours to come back with the priest. So in 8 hours, at the best of time, his uncle may die. So he has to hurry. When he reaches the bottom of Tepeyac, the last thing he has is time for our Blessed Mother, because of course his uncle dies if he gets without a priest, if he gets sidetracked. Then he decides to go, he sees Our Lady at the top of the hill, and he decides to around the back of the hill where she won't see him. Then he realizes, she turns around, starts calling him, and starts walking down the hill. He starts running away from her because he has no time. Of course, Our Lady cuts him off at the bottom of the hill. He falls on his knees and starts explaining about the troubles. And of course, he has to hurry in order to fetch the priest for the uncle. In the meantime, while he is speaking to our Blessed Mother and explaining all of these situations, at the same time, she appears to the uncle, introduces herself and heals him and tells him, I am Santa Maria de Guadalupe. The one who heals is the one who has healed you. Go to the bishop and tell him everything that you have seen and you have heard. Okay. Off, and she vanishes. Then at the meantime, she's still talking with Juan Diego and tells him the most exquisite and beautiful words we have from this entire story. Am I not here, who am your mother? Are you not in the crossing of my arms, under the folds of my mantle, under my shadow and protection? Do not fear, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid of this or any illness. Do not be afraid of God. Am I not here, who am the source and fountain of your joy? Your uncle is now healed. Now, the importance and significance of this particular words is that she is showing mercy, love, compassion. She's consoling him at the moment, in his hour of need, at the moment that he's most anxious. And this is something that the natives had never had. Their entire concept of the world is revenge by the gods when they do something wrong. So when he falls down on his knees, he's terrified that he's going to be punished. But all he receives is absolute love, mercy, and compassion. So this is the turning point. This is the reason for the entire turning point. Knowing and feeling and being witnessing that to the unconditional mercy and love of God. So she tells him, okay, the bishop, now go to the top of the hill where we first met, and there you will find some flowers. Cut them and bring them to me. Okay, it's December the 12th, middle of winter. There's frost on that ground, but if she says flowers, flowers there must be. So he climbs the hill, and then he finds a garden of roses, Castilian roses, flowers he has never seen before. They did not grow in this continent. So he picks the flowers, places them on his cloak, and brings them to Our Lady. Those are Castilian roses. He hands the roses to our Blessed Mother. She arranges them in a bouquet and then places them on his cloak and tells him, this is for the bishop, but only the bishop. Okay? Off goes Juan Diego. When he reaches the bishop's house, the guards are at the door. They know, he doesn't know them, but they know him and they don't like him. So they ask him, what do you want? I want to see the bishop. The bishop had not said anything against admitting Juan Diego if he came back. So they can't kick him out. So they make him wait in the hope that he'll just get bored and go away. And Juan Diego waits, and he waits for 4 hours. When they realize that he's not going anywhere, they approach him and ask him, what do you have there? And he says, nothing. Yeah, right. These are guards. They force him to show the roses. When they see the roses, they smelled them. They explained later, they said that they could smell them, but when they tried to touch them, it was as if the roses were painted or embroidered on the cloth. That is to say, imagine a hologram. It is a three-dimensional object that we see. However, when we try to touch it, we touch the screen. This is the best example that I have for you to explain what they're seeing. Now, the guards, this is 16th century, so holograms are the most ordinary things for us today, not for them. That was witchcraft. They already think it's demonic, so they get scared, frightened. They start screaming and yelling. They run to the bishop and tell him, there he is again. There's something weird going on. You deal with him. The bishop says, okay, let him in. Juan Diego walks in and tells the bishop, I have the proof that you requested of the Lady of Heaven. Okay, let me see it. Then the moment Juan Diego lays the roses at the feet of the bishop, the image appears in front of the bishop and all of the witnesses. It wasn't there. It literally imprints in front of the bishop and everyone present. The bishop, of course, builds the church on Tepeyac Hill. Juan Diego spends the last 17 years of his life telling the story to anyone and everyone who goes to Tepeyac to see our Blessed Mother. He asked to be the one to sweep the church, the little chapel. He asks the most humiliating job, which is taking out the rubbish from everyone else. He could have just coasted on the fact that, you know, I am it. No, the humility is absolutely amazing. He dies 17 years later in 1548, and so does the bishop. He's buried in, he gets buried in Tepeyac Hill, the bishop at the cathedral. Now, because Juan Diego has died, Antonio Valeriano, the man who gave us the Nicanor creates this codex, and we see his signature. This is Antonio Valeriano here, his signature, and we see how Our Lady is on the top of the hill. There's Juan Diego climbing. Then we have Juan Diego kneeling down here at the base, and then we have our Blessed Mother exactly as we know her right here on the right. And she is exactly the same way that we see her today. Now, Our Lady of Guadalupe in Mexico. Our Lady of Guadalupe is exactly the way we see her in this image. She appeared exactly like this, nothing added, nothing removed. Now, there's an Our Lady of Guadalupe in Spain. It's a statue. There's no relation, only the name. The bishop, when he was very little, he was sick and he was going to die. And his mother took him to Our Lady of Guadalupe in Extremadura in Spain and asked for a healing, for a miraculous healing. It was granted. He had a miraculous healing. So his mother consecrates him to Our Lady of Guadalupe. When Our Lady tells Juan Bernardino, the uncle, tell the bishop that it was Santa Maria de Guadalupe, the one who heals, the one who healed you, it is another proof that the bishop requested. It is specifically for him. Okay, so who's Juan Diego? Saint Juan Diego. Before he was baptized, his name was Cuautlatoa. Cuautli is the eagle. His name translates as the one who speaks like the eagle. The eagle represents the sun, the greatest of all the gods. He is the voice of the greatest of all the gods. Later on, he was named Cuautlatoa before even the Spanish arrived in America. Okay, and the portrait that we have of Saint Juan Diego is this. This is a little tricky. The portrait was made by Miguel Cabrera 100 years after the death of Juan Diego. So what he did is he looked at his family, he looked at his descendants, he looked at all the people that were directly in line with Juan Diego, and he did a composite of all the men, and this is what he came up with. So that's why Juan Diego has sporting a rather lovely beard. No. But anyway, so this is the portrait. We have the tilma that he's wearing is woven like this. It is agave. It's made from agave. It's a very coarse fabric. It is the fabric of a man who works the land. He was a macehual, literally a man of the earth, a man who worked the earth. We have here the tilma is sewn in the middle. It has a seam that goes in the middle because it is woven in strips of 2 feet, 60 centimeters wide, and it is sewn together in order to create the whole tilma. A tilma was worn by men. We can see how it is a rectangular piece of cloth that is tied with a knot over the shoulders. Then the higher the man was in the aristocracy, what the understanding of what aristocracy is for the natives is the closeness to the gods. So the symbols that they have on their tilmas marks their closeness to God. So the fact that our Blessed Mother has left her personal image on Juan Diego's tilma, he is the closest to her heart. And it is exactly like this that she leaves her image, and you can see the seam that runs through the entire image up and down. Okay, now she's wearing 3 layers of cloth of dress, and then the mantle. Now the embroidery on her dress, I don't know if any one of you has noticed that her dress is embroidered. We can see it in black and white a lot better. Here we have 3 types of flowers on her dress. The larger flowers are called flower hills. And this is because this is the symbol of a hill for the natives. Since they never developed an alphabet and it's all communicated with pictures, the pictures have symbolism and meaning, an incredible meaning. So we have here the symbol of a hill. We can see how it has rounded base and then the lobes in the center, and then the top is what gives it its name. So by analyzing the flowers that we have on her dress, we see exactly this pattern of the rounded base, the lobes in the middle, and then the tip. So if her flowers of the dress are hills, Dr. Armando Garcia de Leon started analyzing the position of the flowers with mountains and hills that could be a map, and found that, yes, there is a specific place where her dress becomes a map. We have here the Gulf of Mexico. We have here the Pacific. And the exact position of this map, it is the center of it is 19.5 degrees north. Exactly the center of the dress is exactly Mexico City, where Mexico City is located. And the head is facing Jerusalem. Now, the flower that I was mentioning in the center of her dress, it is actually this little 4-petal flower. I don't know how many of you have ever noticed that there's a 4-petal flower in the middle dress. It's the only one in the entire dress. This little flower is actually the most important of the entire image. This is the most important element, the one that seems to be the most insignificant. It represents, each one of the petals represents one of the 4 elements, and the circle in the middle is the source of all life. This comes from a cave located in the Pyramid of the Sun, under the Pyramid of the Sun in Teotihuacan, just outside of Mexico City. We can see here the cave. We can see how there is the tunnel under, not inside, it's under. It's a natural cave. For the natives, this 4-petal flower symbolizes each one of the 4 elements, but if you notice, they're not touching each other. They touch the circle in the middle, which symbolizes the source of life and the source of all creation. The Aztecs take it. This is Teotihuacan. This is not Aztec. The Aztecs take this, they flip it, and they use it as the very center of the Aztec calendar. And as we can see, the circle in the middle is the face of the god of the sun and has the tongue of a dagger sticking out, ready to feed on human hearts. We have them right there, the human hearts, in order to continue life, which is this 4 rectangles around. It is that important. So the fact that we have this particular flower in this precise place, it is over her womb. So this is where life, all of creation, and the entire universe begins. Jesus in her womb is the source of everything that is created. He is the creator of the universe. This is the original on the dress. The next flower we see is called the Venus flower, Venus for the planet. The flower, it is depicted, as we can see, with a 4-petal flower, but it has this 4 little spikes sticking out. What this represents is life through death. These are the daggers that are the sacrifice, and continue. The life has to be continued through human sacrifice. The fact that she has this flower on her dress symbolizes that the sacrifice that God has made, Jesus has died on the cross. He has made the ultimate sacrifice for us so that we do not have to sacrifice. So all human sacrifices stopped in 4 years. They were doing 200,000 human sacrifices a year in all of Mesoamerica, and it went to 0 in 4 years because of the apparitions of Our Lady and this particular flower located here. It is also the symbol of Quetzalcoatl. It is the symbol of the white god that would come from the east to put all of the other gods in their place, and this is the original on the dress. And next, we have the belt. We see that she has her waist tied with a black belt. And we see here how the belt has, for the natives, this is pregnancy. This is the symbol, unequivocal symbol of pregnancy. These 2 strips that end at the end here symbolize pregnancy. The 4 loops, the other 4 that we see, is that 4-petal flower. So she's pregnant with the god of life, the source of our creation. Here we have the carving of a statue that represents a woman that has died giving birth. So the fact that we know that she's pregnant is these 2 strips going down. The goddess, the Aztec goddess, that the mother of all the gods and the mother of all mankind, we see how her belt is made out of snakes, and she's got 2 heads of serpents, which symbolize the pregnancy. And then we have the belt is the skull. So she's the goddess of life and death. And when we see our Blessed Mother with this, instead of a skull, she has this 4 loops of the bow of her belt. She is nothing but bringing the God that gives life. Now, the moon, the 2 horns that are sticking underneath, I have been asked plenty of times that those are the horns of the devil and she's stamping the devil. No. This is the moon. The only reason why it's black, it's because it's eclipsed, and the moon could not be any other color but black when it is eclipsed. But the fact that she has her foot stepping, we see how her foot is stepping on the moon, is the fact that Juan Diego said that she walked down the hill and then appears at the bottom. So she physically set foot on the hill. So Tepeyac Hill is the closest thing we have to Holy Land in America. And the fact that she's standing in the center of the moon, Mexico or Mexico translates as the belly button of the moon or the center of the moon. So she set foot in Mexico. Now, consequences of the apparitions. Immediately after the apparitions and the story gets known and the image and the story have to go together. As soon as that is spread, the natives began converting. As Father said at Mass, 10 million in 7 years. We see here how the natives began to be baptized and married. There were each priest was doing 200 baptisms per day per priest. It is the largest conversion in the history of all mankind. It is not only of the church, not only of the Catholic Church, but of the entire world. There has not been a conversion of this magnitude anywhere else in the world. Now, scientific research. Today, we love science and we venerate science. All of the miracles have to be verified by scientists. So let's talk science with Our Lady of Guadalupe. The stars that are depicted on the mantle that we have here are analyzed by astronomers, and they realize that where we see random dots, random stars, they actually can see constellations. They can recognize the constellations. We see here this big one here on the left, on the right-hand side, sorry, her left, our right, is Scorpio. Then we have Ursa Minor, the Little Dipper. Then we have the Southern Cross. Here we have the Big Dipper. The stars are easy to see, but the most important are not the ones that are on her mantle. Actually, the most important ones are the ones that fall on her body. But the weird thing about the stars is that they're not placed the right way we would see them. The view of the stars is from heaven to earth. It is God looking down onto earth, and the position of the stars are imprinted on her mantle. By analysis, they discovered that the date of the stars is December the 12th, 1531 at 10:40 a.m. So the moment Juan Diego lets go of the roses and the image is imprinted on his cloak, the exact position of the stars in the sky at that moment are imprinted. That is the position that it is imprinted on her mantle. Now, as I said, the most important ones are not the one on the mantle, but the ones that fall on her body, the ones we do not see. So the ones we see on the mantle are painted red here, and then the ones that we don't are painted blue. So we see here at the top the theological importance of this particular constellation. This is the boreal crown. Her head is crowned with stars. Her chest has the constellation Virgo, the Virgin. Her womb has Leo, the lion. The Messiah, Jesus, is called the Lion of Judah in the Old Testament. So she has Leo, the lion, where she is pregnant. And then at the bottom, we have Orion, which is the guardian directly over the angel. Now, the position of the stars are exactly the same way that the map of the dress is located, 19.5 degrees north, and her head is facing east towards Jerusalem. Now, in 1954 and then again in 1963, Francisco Camps Rivera, an expert on photography, did an infrared photography study on the image. Now, infrared photography shows what is behind the paint. When an artist changes his mind and changes the pictures, and a hand becomes a dog, or just the hand changes position or something like that, pimentimento, then the infrared photography can see through behind the paint. It also sees how the paint is holding on, how the surface is prepared to receive the paint. You cannot paint on fabric directly, and because it falls off. It has to gesso and other things have to be added on. So when he did the analysis for the on the image with the infrared photography, we have it here on the right-hand side, he found there's nothing. Literally, there's nothing behind the paint. The fabric is not prepared. There's no trace of a sketch. There's not even a brush stroke. There's no signs of how the paint was placed on the fabric. And to us, with our technology today, in 2020, we have not the means to be able to put these pigments on a fabric so coarse as agave, the one we saw with Juan Diego, and have it stick and stay. Then in 1936, they took two threads of the original, one painted yellow and one painted red, and sent them to Richard Kuhn. He was a PhD in chemistry. He won the Nobel Prize of Chemistry in 1938. So they sent him a blind test of these two threads. A blind test means that he doesn't know what he's getting, and he is told, tell us anything you can and everything you can about this particular object. He did carbon testing, carbon-14 dating, and he's dated them from the 1500s. That's as close as he can give us about the age of the threads. Then he analyzed through spectrophotometry of atomic absorption, which is a sophisticated way of saying, what is this made of? What are the atoms that make up this two things, the paint as well as the threads. And he said, well, the threads are agave popotule. So, okay, we knew it was agave. We didn't know what kind. So he gave us the exact kind. And then the pigments, he said, I cannot compose, I cannot understand. It is not animal, it is not mineral, it is not vegetable. He was unable to identify where these pigments came from. They are not found on Earth. Then, at least not to his knowledge. Then he asked the people who brought the threads. He asked them, where did you get this? Where did this come from? Because I know for a fact that agave, untreated, there's no chemical trace of anything, it's untreated, does not last more than 30 to 50 years under museum conditions, under the best conditions possible. They disintegrate in time. So I just dated this from the 16th century. And the colors, the pigments are just amazing. The refraction is incredible. This is the latest technology. I have never seen anything like this. I cannot even identify, I cannot find the elements that are composing these pigments. Where did these come from? They told him, well, there are two threads of the tilma from Juan Diego that Our Lady imprinted on Tepeyac Hill. The who, the what are you talking about? They told him the story. And they showed him the source of where the pigments came from and the threads. And he converted. He was an atheist. He was a fallen away Jew. And his expression was, only God could have made this. He became a Catholic and a devout follower of Our Lady of Guadalupe. He came to the faith through absolute science. Now, the eyes. From the very early on, they realized that you can actually see a human reflected on the eyes just with a magnifying glass. Nothing fancy is required. And with a ophthalmoscope like this, those of us who are of a certain age remember when they used to do those tests like this. Today, it's a big device where you put your chin on it. But back then, it was this an ophthalmoscope. The Dr. Javier Torroya y Bueno and Dr. Rafael Torrija Lavoignet applied the ophthalmoscope to the eyes of our Blessed Mother, discovering that there was indeed a person reflected on the right eye of Our Lady. Here we have a white line outlining the person reflected on the eye. I hope everyone can see that clearly. The eyes are composed of three elements in order for the images of our eyes. So we have, this is called the Purkinje-Sanson law. And we have the cornea, which is the outside of the eye, the lens, which is the middle, and then the retina at the back. So the images appear at the lens upside down and the other two appear right side up. When they applied the ophthalmoscope to the eye, they discovered that there are those three images exactly as a three-dimensional living human eye. Now, if you try to apply an ophthalmoscope to any photograph, any painting, any poster, anything like that, you will not get this. It is impossible for us to replicate what you can get from the ophthalmoscope from a living three-dimensional human eye, and yet our Blessed Mother has exactly those three images. Now, this doesn't mean that she sees, it doesn't move, there's no blood flow, that she doesn't turn, the iris does not react to light or anything like that. It's just that the images in her eyes are exactly the same as a living three-dimensional human eye. Okay, now, after hearing this, Dr. Jose Astetonsman, who worked for NASA, he's an expert in image interpretation. He was the lead of the team from Mars that did the scanning of Mars. He interpreted all of the images, and with he was the leader of the head of the team that did all of that when they were looking for signs of life and water and things on Mars. So in 1979, he used a scanner and scanned the eyes of Our Lady on the image, and he found images on the cornea, only on the outside, Okay, this is a superficial scanning of the eye. He discovered that there are 13 people reflected in the eyes of our Blessed Mother. He gave us this image, this little cross on the right. This is the cursor of the computer. She doesn't have crosses in her eyes. I have been told that before. No, this is just the cursor of the computer. So the images are outlined here in order for us to make it a lot easier to see. We have a man sitting down here on the floor. He's a Native American. We have here the bishop, we have the interpreter Juan González, we have Juan Diego with the tilma tied around his neck and his arms being extended. We have an African woman here. We know for a fact that the housekeeper of the bishop was an African woman. We have a Spanish man here, and we have a family group right in the center of her eye. Taking away the background gives us a little better view of this, and by pigmenting sepia, it sort of gives it a three-dimensional quality. It helps us see all of the elements that we are looking at. So let's begin with the Native American. We can see a man. This is a man. He's got a half ponytail. He's got an earring with dangling bits. He's holding on to a parcel that is hanging from his back. There is a perfectly round rattle. The natives danced to worship their gods. So he's clearly just come from dancing. And then we see how he's got one leg in front of the other and the other one folded towards the back. Now, the important thing, well, the impressive thing here is that we can actually see the strap of the sandal that he is wearing. This is actually historically correct. Now, this sandal is 4 microns in width. For those of us who have no clue what the heck's a micron, if you take a kilometer and you divide it into 1,000, you get a meter. If you take a meter and you divide it into 1,000, you get a millimeter. If you take a millimeter and you divide it into 1,000, you get a micron. This is 4 microns in width. With all of the nanotechnology we have today, it is impossible to paint a line of 4 microns of width on a fiber of agave. We cannot replicate this. We can copy. There are hundreds of thousands and millions of copies being made every day, but not a single replica. It is impossible for us to replicate just the strap of the sandal. Here we can see it more in detail, a lot better. We see the type of sandal that the man is wearing. And here we have a statue that is located on Tepeyac Hill. This is historically correct. This is the type of sandal I'm talking about. And the strap that in the eye of our Blessed Mother, 4 microns in width. This is a drawing by an artist to help us see that what we are looking at, and we have him right there. Now we can see him a lot better. Here we have the bishop, we have the translator, Juan González. We can see the profile of the bishop. We can see the nose, very straight nose, European nose. We can see that he's got a tonsure, he's balding. And the tonsure, don't mock those of us who are balding. And then we have the beard. Also, we see very clearly and distinctly the beard. He is in full profile, and the translator, Juan González, is 3/4. We see here only the bishop, and we can very distinct and clear his eyes. We can also see the nose, very straight. We can see the beard, and we can see his hairline. This is a painting that was done of the moment of the apparitions. We see the depicted face of the bishop, and we see the left eye here, and the drawing done by the artist. Now, I don't take the drawings by the artist as absolute proof, because this guy, Juan González, looks like Richard Nixon. So yeah, no. Okay, this is just to give us an idea of what we're looking at. There we are. Okay, this is the original. And this is actually the portrait of Juan González. As you can see, he looks nothing like Nixon. So this is the natural position that we find him, 3/4 of the way as a translator. And here we have both of them. Here we have Juan Diego with the tilma and his arms sticking out. We see the line of the tilma. We can see the nose, curved nose, typical of a Native American. And we can see how the arms are stretched with the tilma. It is the moment that Juan Diego lays the roses at the bishop. What our Blessed Mother is looking at is what is reflected on her eyes. So she is present at the moment, invisible, but present. And then we can even see the knot of the tilma on the back of Juan Diego's neck. And we can see the high cheekbones, and we can see the curve of the nose. Here we have the two eyes side by side. They're not identical. This is the artist's depiction. Again, just an idea. And here we have Juan Diego standing with the tilma. We have the African housekeeper very clearly in the back, and this is the artist's rendition. And here we have the rest of the group that is in the eyes. Now we can see more clearly here the family group. On the other eye, on the left eye, her left, our right, we see very clearly here, the largest image that we have is that we can be seeing with just a magnifying glass, and the one that is reflected in the eyes, inside the eye, the largest one. We can see how he is a Spaniard. We can see the native's head. We can see the bishop and the translator, Juan Diego, and then the family group. We can see more people from the family group. Now, we can see the Spaniard who has one hand underneath his chin like this. Then we can see the beard. We can see actually the cuff of the shirt. We can see the mutton leg type of jacket that is worth Elizabethan times, which is, of course, the time we're talking about, 16th century. This is a man typical of the era. And here he is, that man. Now, the most important bit that we have is that in the very apple of her eye is the family group, not the bishop, not Juan Diego. It is the family group that she is looking directly at. And this family group can be seen in both eyes very clearly and distinctly. We have a man with a sombrero. He's Mexican, absolutely. We have a young boy. We have a baby on the back of his mother. We have a young girl, and we have another couple behind. This is the artist's rendition. And then when we compare both eyes, what Dr. Aste did is play around with the computer, taking out images and looking at the background. When he took out the family group from both eyes and compared and did a composite of the two, which gives you a more of a three-dimensional depiction, he discovered that directly over the family, there is this shadow, exactly the shadow of our Blessed Mother. When she tells Juan Diego, under my shadow and protection, it is exactly the family that we have, in this case, under her shadow and protection. Now, Our Lady of Guadalupe today, let's talk about Our Lady of Guadalupe. What does it have to do? All of this, what does it have to do with me today? Our Lady of Guadalupe is still today there at the Basilica, the original that we saw from Juan Diego. Today, the Basilica receives 150,000 pilgrims per day. It is the most visited shrine in the world, even more than St. Peter's. There isn't another shrine in the world that gets more people than the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe. Of course, COVID, not at the moment. The festivities of Our Lady of Guadalupe, we receive anywhere from 7 to 10 million on December the 12th in 24 hours every year. Again, except this year. St. John Paul II named our Blessed Mother, Our Lady of Guadalupe, the star of the new evangelization, and pleaded her to do the conversion, the same that she did back then, to do today, to turn our hearts to God. He visited 6 times. On the last time, on the 6th time, he did the canonization of St. Juan Diego. July the 31st, 2002, the canonization was attended by 12 million people. It is the largest attended canonization in the history of the church, and it is the first Native American to be canonized. Pope Benedict XVI on the day of his election as the new pope, the next day after the smoke cleared, he went down to the Vatican Gardens and consecrated his papacy and his life to Our Lady of Guadalupe at the Vatican Gardens. He actually consecrated his life and asked and told her, in your maternal hands we place our lives. Pope Francis visited Our Lady of Guadalupe 2006, February 12th, 2006, and gave her a gold crown in the same fashion as the natives, the native crown, Native American crown, and crowned her the Empress of all created, of the entire creation, the universe as a whole. He spends half an hour there. When asked what was he praying about, he said, none of your business, just pray for me and my intentions. Then before he came, he sent 4 gold roses to Our Lady of Guadalupe. When he was a young priest, he was dying, and he asked one of the nurses, who was a nun, to bring, she told him, I'm going to Mexico, is there anything I can bring you? And he said, yes, bring me a medal of Our Lady of Guadalupe that it has been blessed at the basilica. Can do. The nun comes to Mexico, goes to mass, has the medal blessed, goes back. The moment he puts on the medal, he starts healing and he gets better. He's saved. So one of the golden roses is to thank our Blessed Mother for his life. The next gold rose is to consecrate his papacy. The next gold rose was to consecrate all of creation, to crown her as the queen of all creation, which he later did with the crown. And then the fourth one, when asked what was the intention, he said, it's none of your business, just pray for me and my intentions. So he continues to tell us, please just pray for me and my intentions. This is the sums of everything that I have explained. This is what I would call a mind map, and is a lot of other things that are not here. As I said, the full lecture is 9 hours. This is just a small taste of what there is. And that's it.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Fernando, that is amazing. The comments coming in are just incredible. So much data, much appreciated.
Thank you.
For everybody watching, I don't know if you're aware, but Fernando is coming to us via Mexico. One of the silver linings of the pandemic is that we can get our speakers from all over the world. We wish you were here, Fernando, like you were last year. But we're so blessed to have you come via Mexico, which is 2 hours ahead. So it's a little past bedtime for you.
10:22. Not yet. A few minutes. I still have about half an hour more.
Okay. Another thing I want to mention before we move on to the Q&A, I want to start some good questions. Think about those questions, ladies. Start putting them in the chats. Is Fernando did a talk at St. Matthew's in San Mateo this past week on Our Lady of Guadalupe. So he is available for parishes and talks currently. So if your parish is looking for a speaker, Fernando is your guy. He can do that. It doesn't have to be during the December Advent season. It can be at any time also. I was able to chime in and see that talk, and it was wonderful. So you're available. Okay, so let me see what some of the questions are. Okay. Oh, I have a question for you, Fernando.
Yeah, shoot.
This is an apostolate of yours. This is a passion. It oozes from from you, just the love you have for Our Lady of Guadalupe. When did you have your discernment that this was?
There was no specific point. It's very interesting because with the papal visit of John Paul II, on his second visit, there was this crazy group of Canadians, and Eileen is here, that came down on a pilgrimage, and I was already working on as a tour guide, and by chance, there was a group of Edmontonians, people from Edmonton in Alberta in Canada, and And they asked me, they invited me after the pilgrimage. They told me, why don't you come to visit to Edmonton? I said, okay, I have a month coming up, so free for holidays for my yearly vacation. And they said, yeah, but we're not going to have you a month just loafing around doing nothing. So why don't you give us a talk? And I was invited to do a talk. And one of the ladies from there asked me, how many talks are you willing to do? You're going to stay 30 days. How many talks are you willing to do? We have 9 booked, 11 maybe. How many would you want to do? I said, I don't care. As many as come up. Sure. Anyone who wants to talk, I'll do it. Not a problem. We got 27 talks in 30 days. So some days I was doing 3 or 4 talks in one day. At schools, it was the younger kids, then middle school, then high school, and then the parish in the evening. So it ended up being an incredible experience. I had not planned to do this at all. But when drilling and rereading the encyclica, the Church in America, Ecclesia in America, the start of the new evangelization, John Paul II told us the light of the gospel of Christ will shine out to the whole world by means of this miraculous image of his mother. Go and spread the message. So I guess
that's how it was.
She chose me.
Yeah. That's usually how it happens, right?
Yeah, I just said yes.
Fantastic. Well, we couldn't be happier to have you say yes for us. Okay, question I have here is, could you please repeat what it was you recommended we read? You mentioned it in a poem.
The Nican Mopoa. It is the story of Our Lady of Guadalupe and Juan Diego. It is actually the original source that we have of the conversations. Antonio Valeriano heard it from Juan Diego, and he wrote down every word that Juan Diego said, verbatim. So those are the words of Juan Diego telling the story, written by Antonio Valeriano. So it is both in it is in Spanish and Nahuatl, but it is in English. It is available online. Actually, you don't even have to buy it. It is easily. Just consider the source. Please do be careful. There are a lot of people with their own personal opinion, and just get a hold of the actual Nican Mopoa, the original. It is the telling of the story.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Eileen. Yes. Getting us out of that one. Okay. At one point in history, the Franciscans opposed the lady. What was it that changed their opinion?
It wasn't that they opposed the lady. What happened was that the bishop is the one that saw it. The other priests that were not present in the miracle and that saw the massive conversions that were happening so fast. As I said, 200 people baptized per day per priest. Okay, so the priests that were not present and they would see the pilgrimages that would come, the natives who were not yet baptized would walk up to a month from all the way down south to Oaxaca. They would walk for a month, bypassing churches along the way. They would not stop in churches along the way. And that made the priests question the fact that, is this idolatry? Is this real? Is this so? The priests themselves questioned the authenticity because they saw that the natives, they couldn't understand why they had this were drawn to this particular image when they had statues, Spanish statues. They had, I don't know, the Immaculate Conception, particularly the Franciscans. So that's where their mistrust, let's say, came about.
Okay, great. Okay, question from Melissa Waters. Can you talk about those who might dispute the scientific findings? Are there any, and what is their angle?
The people who refuse to believe, even in the face of facts. There's a saying that I learned in Alberta, in Edmonton, actually in the seminary in Edmonton: don't confuse me with facts, my mind's made up. regardless of how many facts you show them. The fact that a man who was a Nobel Chemistry Prize winner analyzed, and he said this is only made by God because the fibers do not last. The fact that we have nothing holding the pigments in place, the fact that they did paintings, they actually did oil paintings and placed them side by side with the image. And before 10 years, because it was on the edge of the lake, the water, and it was a saltwater lake, and the salt from the lake, the candles, the smoke from the candles, the soot from the candles, all of this disintegrated the other pictures in 10 years. And yet our Blessed Mother, 489 years later, we're still here. So the more, I'm sorry if you don't believe, even in face of all of this, a NASA scientist, a Nobel chemistry winner, I'm sorry if you really don't want to believe, there's nothing more that I can do.
Well, I got a question that got text to me. Ready?
Okay.
This
yes,
is from
sure.
Mr. Zeke.
Oh,
maybe he's watching from on Facebook Live.
Facebook Live,
right?
Yes, I know him well.
Can you ask Fernando about a hidden musical melody in the image?
Okay, this is part of the 9-hour lecture that I was mentioning. Yes, there was an analysis done by an expert musician that taking the stars, the position of the stars and the flowers, he realized that you can actually put them on the scale and their musical notes. And there is music. You can find it on YouTube. There is music on Our Lady. It isn't a song. It's just music. Okay, you're not going to have a melody. You're not going to have the Ave Maria, but it is music. It is just incredible.
Okay, who knew? Where is the tilma located?
It is located in the Basilica in Mexico City on Tepeyac Hill. The only time that it was taken off view was during the revolution in 1921. On November the 14th, around 10 o'clock in the morning, there was a dynamite bomb placed to destroy it. And I'm not going to go into the details of it, but the dynamite exploded, the altar was damaged, the flower arrangements flew out, and the glass that was covering the image wasn't even scratched. So they shut down the church, they took the image down, the bishop took the image to his house, and after the persecution ended, they brought the image back, notary public, sealed with a wax and all of this, doing properly, due diligence, and then so it's certified that it wasn't tampered, it wasn't open, there was nothing, it was the original image that was taken out and then placed back in at the Basilica.
Isn't that very similar to what happened at Fatima when they tried to blow up the chapel?
Similar, but not exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Meaning that the statue was not impacted.
Damaged. Yes.
Damaged.
Even though the statue that was right next to it was damaged. That's where the parallels are correct. Yes.
Work with me, Fernando. Okay,
sorry,
got a big group here.
Yes.
Try and make this happen.
Okay, yes.
Fatima,
yes, it's the same.
Guadalupe. Well, it reiterates the miraculousness of this whole of the tilma of the protection of Mary.
Yes,
that's really that. No matter what comes towards us or towards her, that it's indestructible.
Exactly.
It's infinite. So
exactly.
Fantastic. Okay. Another question I have is, there are comments that the moon and the angle were added later. What do you have to say about this?
Yes,
from Jennifer Dodoni.
We have that's why I make a mention specifically of the scroll done by Antonio Valeriano as in the death of Juan Diego, and the image that is depicted there is exactly the same as the one we have today. So there were things added that have fallen off, and again, that's part of the longer talk that we can go into those details. But the image that we have today at the Basilica, it is exactly the same image that appeared to Juan Diego on the tilma. So anything that was added fell off, and there was a little bit scraped off, but yeah, details. We'll talk about them another time. And but it is exactly the way we do. No, that is a mistake. I know. And yeah, it's Callahan who you're talking about. I know. I even know who spread this about.
Okay.
But that is incorrect.
Okay, so how can Mary's message to Juan Diego, how is that applied to us today with everything going on and so much unrest?
Right.
How do we apply this?
The first thing that immediately comes to mind, of course, are the words, "Am I not here who am your mother?" But also within the same paragraph, we read, "Do not be afraid. Do not fear. Do not fear illness. Do not be afraid. Am I not here who am the source and fountain of your joy?" Now, when you have confidence, when you have that assurance, she has called, "I am your mother and the mother of all who are united in this land." So this land can be taken as Mexico, can be taken as the American continent, can be taken as the world, the planet. We understand that we're under her mantle and protection, that it is the unconditional love of God. God does not place conditions on his love. That is the very essence of the message. What she has brought us is dignity of the human being, that the natives were had believed that they were believed to be demonic and inhuman and whatever. I don't have any more adjectives. And then but most of all, they thought that God had abandoned them because the pyramids were being destroyed, because they had been conquered, they were falling ill, there were deaths by the thousands. And yet, what she comes and brings is, this is the will of God. This is not to be afraid. Don't panic. Okay? This is not you. If you have confidence and trust in God, in the absolute trust in God, then nothing that you face can hurt you. Number two, when I was taught this from a bishop a long, long time ago, when you are at peace with God, death is your best friend.
Very true. Very true.
We're not going to actively go seek it.
Yeah.
Okay?
No, thank you.
You're not going to go stand on the highway and wait, "Here, take me to God." No, that's suicide. No. But having that peace, being at peace and knowledge of that God loves you unconditional, that is the understanding. And with that, we have the peace.
Okay. Yes, very, very true. And needed nowadays.
Ugh.
So a question here from Kirsty Engels. Where was the cloth kept all those years before it was sent to be analyzed?
No. It was on display.
Always on display.
They only sent two threads, one red and one yellow.
Okay, but maybe
in 1936.
But then you had the gentleman, looked like the tilma was down. He was doing the photo on top of it. So
no, it's a photograph. No. What we see there, Dr. Rafael Torrijos Laguañet is looking down at the photograph of the original. Later, he did the original, but at first he used a photograph, and then later he was granted access.
And there's nothing been done as of late as past 1976.
No, because the 1979, it was the last one. No, sorry. What happened was the Pope said, Paul VI said enough. And then in 1975, they built a new basilica. They did all of these tests. They did a series of tests at that time. And that's when the ophthalmoscope and all of that was applied more directly to the image, because they changed the crystal, the bulletproof crystal. They changed it so the image was actually seen without the crystal. And that's when they were able to do tests up close. However, John Paul II said enough. Enough is enough. We are not here to test God. Okay, so when technology advances in the future, we have a lot to we're still digesting everything that was done during that time. Remember, he came to Mexico in 1979 for the first time, February 79, and that's when they said, "Can we do more tests?" No, 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 stop. We're not going to do any more. The analysis of the eyes was done. What they do allow to do is anything that is non-invasive, anything that can be done through the crystal, then it's fine.
Okay. So once we're able to travel again,
yes,
what do you recommend as the must-dos in the pilgrimage?
Well, the Basilica immediately, naturally. Tepeyac Hill.
Wait, first of all, it's to call you and say, hello, Fernando.
Let me know. Of course. Let me know. I'll be glad to take you there. The other one, the most overlooked, is the fact that Juan Diego's house, where his uncle was healed, from the feet of our Blessed Mother, where she was standing, sprung a well of healing waters, just like Lourdes. And it is still there today. There was a woman, an American woman in the 1930s, between world wars. She came down. She was an incredibly wealthy woman, and she was diagnosed with cancer. She drove all the way from the US to Mexico City, and she heard about the healing waters. She was not able to go to Lourdes because we're talking about still unrest in Europe from the world wars. So she came down to Mexico and she drank the healing waters and was cured of cancer. So she actually bequeathed her entire fortune so that the water and the well be accessible to anyone, and she's paying for the water for everyone even today. She left a trust fund that takes care of the water, so you just walk up, open up a faucet, and get the water that you as much as you want.
That is unbelievable. That is the best kept secret. I've never heard of that. Thank you.
It's not a secret.
Well, maybe like you hear about going to the Basilica, you hear about seeing the Tilma, but that of course takes precedence to everything else. Yes. It's such an important, like I'm going back to Fatima. I was like going to Francisco's house, and the areas around it has so much meaning to it also.
Right.
Another question is the Tilma on display at all times?
Yes, during from 6 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. There is mass every hour on the hour. There was mass until COVID. Again, extraordinary circumstances at the moment, but there is mass every hour on the hour from 6 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. So as soon as 8 o'clock mass is over, they shut down the basilica, and then she is put away. I don't know if you noticed with the Pope's Francis photograph that the image is actually encapsulated between two crystals, and then a frame that goes around, and it has two hinges. So she is put away every night in a vault that we call the Chamber of Our Blessed Mother, her bedroom for the chamber. And so she is put away every night, but she is on display. When the basilica is open, she's on display the entire day.
Okay. Another question is, I heard that the temperature of the image is a consistent 98 degrees. Is that correct?
False. No, I'm afraid that's misinformation. Somebody decided to spread this rumor, and I was victim to it before I started really studying seriously. I was told this and was fascinated by it, and then it didn't take me very long to find out that it was not true. This has been said. The thing is, okay, there's three things that are being mainly spread around, and I've seen countless of videos of people repeating this. Every December the 12th, I get it. Everyone sends me all these things. Number one, there's no body temperature. She has ambient temperature all the time. She is affected by the ambient temperature. Okay, the Tilma is affected by the Tilma.
Okay, the Tilma.
The Tilma is affected by the ambient temperature. Therefore, there is no difference in temperature. Okay. Number 2, her eyes do not move. She doesn't react to light. She's not looking at you. She doesn't follow you. Her eyes do not have movement and reaction to the light or anything like that. Number 3, there are no heartbeats. Someone told me that there were 2 heartbeats that you could hear, and then that the someone, see, that's the key. Somebody put a stethoscope to the womb of our Blessed Mother and heard the baby, and then to her chest and heard her heartbeat. Who? When? I have given you the names of every one of the scientists that has done every single one of the tests. You can go back to the video and the recording, look at the names, look them up, and you will find that they're historical people that actually did these tests. They're existing people. When they tell you someone did this, someone put a stethoscope, someone took the temperature, someone, no.
No, it's just like I know a guy. I know a guy.
Exactly.
It's that guy.
I heard it said, or everyone knows.
Right.
Yeah, no. Okay.
Well, thank you for clearing that up. We're just going to do one more question since it is 8:45. I want to keep in a kind of timely manner so people have gift wrapping, putting the kids to bed, final exams, showering, all this stuff.
We're starting the posadas tomorrow. So there's no posadas. They're all Zoom posadas. They're online.
So the last question I have, which kind of goes back to the healing waters.
Yes.
The question is, has that water been analyzed?
It is ordinary water. It seems to, it's just nothing. It's just mineral water. Okay. Mineral water.
Okay. Let me just see if there's one more tidbit in here for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, here's one. What made Juan Diego a saint? And did he perform any miracles?
Yes,
we'll end on that note, and that'll be our last question.
In order to be declared a saint, any person has to have 3 miracles. I think we're down to 2 now. Canon laws changed. Now we're down to 2. 2 miracles that cannot be explained by science, that cannot be explained by any knowledge of any scientist today. And there was 2 miracles. The last one, the final miracle, which was done by him through his intercession, was a young man who was a drug addict, and he was his mother was a single mother. He was already an adult, and he was, I think, I can't remember his exact age. It's always bugged me. I can't remember. It always goes out of my mind. But anyway, let's say 20-year-old. He is a drug addict. He gets himself clean, steals from his own mother in order to get high. It's all of this. So he is in one of his sober days with his mother's house, and he is had it. He realizes the damage and the hurt that he's doing to his own mother. Sorry, I get very emotional. And he decides to end his mother's suffering by jumping out of the balcony. He is in a high-rise. He's in an apartment building. He jumps out of the balcony, not from the 3rd floor. I can't remember if it was 5th or 7th floor.
It was very high.
It was very high. Oh yeah, there was no surviving this one. So his mother sees this and grabs his feet, manages to hold on to his ankle. However, she starts slipping from her grasp. She doesn't have the strength. This is dead weight. So she loses him and screams, "Juan Diego, save him." Sorry. He falls head first on the pavement, and his skull cracks open, and literally his brain starts oozing out of his skull. An ambulance arrives, and they take him to the hospital, telling the mother he's not going to live. He's not going to survive. There's nothing we can do but ease his pain. That is it. He's got the bandages around the head, but his cephalic mass is literally dripping out of his skull. Suddenly, the man wakes up and he doesn't know where he is. He looks around and he sees that there's another man lying in another bed. There's 2 beds to this room. He feels incredibly hungry, and he sees that the other patient is asleep and not eating the food. He gets up from the bed, grabs the little pudding cup that from the other patient, and then opens it. He doesn't find a spoon. He starts licking the pudding cup. At that moment where he's just making a mess of that pudding on his face, the nurse walks in and sees him and screams, and he gets terrified because he thinks he's going to be in trouble because he just stole the food from the other patient. It was not his food. The nurse runs out yelling and screaming and tells the doctor the dead man is eating. They had him already as diagnosed death. They were only waiting for his death. When they did the scan, the CT scan, as well as the x-rays, he was completely healed.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, there you go. Anything is possible. Anything is possible.
With that, the woman had she was at the canonization. If you see the recordings of the canonization, she's wearing a medallion. She was giving a relic of Juan Diego, Saint Juan Diego.
Amazing. And when was he canonized?
2002, July the 31st.
Wow. Pretty recent.
Yes. And he was the very first Native American to be canonized.
All right. So I have something else down here. So, okay. There. So on YouTube channel, they currently has some of your
yes.
Lectures are up on YouTube.
The 4-hour lecture is on the channel of the Oblates of the Virgin Mary. I did the lecture in Boston at the Prudential Center at the Chapel of St. Francis with the Oblates, and they recorded there's 4 videos, 4 hours of this. It's not an hour, it's about 45 minutes, 40 odd minutes each one of the videos, and it's this presentation that I just did only extended into 4 hours. Fantastic. The 9 hour has never been recorded.
Well, I think you have some work. We got to get that done, Fernando. This is fantastic.
Thank you.
We're going to end on that note, knowing that Juan Diego was canonized and in 2002, and we'll close on that note. Another question here. Okay, we could go on about this,
absolutely.
And but we're gonna I think we'll just call it a day again. Just everybody, so you know that Fernando is available for talks. You can get in touch with myself. Fernando, why don't you give your email address?
It's LF. My name is Luis Fernando. So LF Castaneda, as you can see it there, CASTANEDA @gmail.com.
I'm going to put that in there.
Oh, there it is. Eileen just.
I just did to. Okay. Perfect.
I have a Facebook page.
Perfect. If you can mute yourself for a second, Fernando, so I can come up. There we go. There. Perfect. So thank you, everyone. We hope you had a wonderful evening. These talks, again, will be posted up on the Facebook, Our Lady of Santa Clara Facebook page, and on their YouTube channel starting tomorrow. And if you would like to donate, there's several ways you can donate. Now that we're no longer in person, you can donate via Zelle. You can write a check to Our Lady of Santa Clara Retreat Center, 22480 Mercedes Road, Cupertino, California, 95014. You can also make an automatic payment on PayPal. Maybe it's just it's going to be olsretreat.org/donations, and that should work for you. There we go. Thank you. So again, we have 2 talks coming up. The temperament that God gave you, January 26th. Then we have the 5 love languages. Actually, I have the 2 because one's for my husband and then one's for me to figure out how to work with love my children, I think is the best way to put it. But these are going to be 2 great talks coming up in January and February. We want to wish you and your families a very blessed and holy Christmas and a very joyous new year. Be safe, everyone, and we will see you in January. Please feel free to give us comments or suggestions at olscretreat.com or to kjgwhitmer@gmail.com. Fernando, you are a gem.
Thank
We
you.
wish you felicidades for the Christmas year,
Igualmente.
and we will see you soon.
Very well.
Happy
Okay.
Advent.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everyone.